This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. We're very honoured today to be in the company of the Whisky Connoisseur's Whisky Connoisseur, Mr. Jim Murray. How are you today, sir?
Well, all the better for hearing that introduction. Thank you very much.
Now, you have quite a storied history in both the study of the whisky world and then writing of it.
Yeah.
Please tell us a little bit about your beginnings in this industry.
Wow. Well, the first distillery I went to was Talisker. And
Talisker,
that was way back in 1975, when, as a young reporter, they actually let me have 2 weeks off holiday, and I got on a train to Inverness, thumbed a lift around the north of Scotland, and ended up at Talisker Distillery. So I was determined to get to the distillery, and very, very kindly, the guy there allowed me to taste the whiskey straight out of the cask.
Nice.
And I think you could say that was a life-changing moment.
And had you been enjoying whiskey up until that point, or was this the?
I had an uncle who tried to feed me some whiskey when I was about 10.
All right, okay.
Something like that, 9 or 10. And he was rather surprised when I actually asked for another one. I had a taste for whiskey, that's for sure. And then after I went to Talisker that time, and literally fell in love. I would taste every single Scotch whiskey that I could find, and I did little rudimentary tasting notes of every whiskey that I could find. I don't know why I did it. But I did, and I had them all the way from about 1975 up to about 1986 or 87.
All right, so a good 11 years of.
Well, what happened was that I'd been working up in Scotland on a story, and I had this thing with all my notes in, and I went back to my newspaper office to put in my expenses because I've been away for 3 weeks, and I went into the office, dropped them off on the editor's table. Went back to my car and found that someone had broken into my car and stolen all my cases, all my clothes, and unfortunately they stole all my tasting notes that went right back to 1970.
Oh no!
The whole lot.
Right.
They all went.
Okay.
So you could say I've been playing catch up.
Oh, good Lord! Now, when did you start writing professionally about whiskey?
That would have been in the late 80s.
Okay.
And I'd already, for a newspaper, written a very, very large piece, a double-page spread on the Scotch Malt Whisky Society.
I know it well, yes.
Yeah, well, they'd only just opened.
Right.
So I did this huge piece on this new society that just bought their first barrel. And then after that, I started writing in the evening for magazines and, whoever would take it. And it was a question of just banging on doors and picking out the phones. And usually I was told to get lost because there was no such thing as whiskey writing. There was wine writers, there was beer writers and such. But I remember ringing one national paper in Britain, and the features editor said, "Oh, whiskey, that's one up from meths, isn't it?" or something like that.
Jeez.
No, seriously. That was the attitude that you were dealing with.
Seems ridiculous, actually.
Now, yes, but then that's how it was. And the reason why I wanted to do this was because the only stuff that was actually being written about whiskey in the old days was actually being written by wine writers.
Right.
And with all respect to wine writers, for instance, you're not going to find me writing about wine.
Right.
Now, if you go into my cellar and look at the wines you got in there, you'd have a great time. You would find some great wines. But I don't study it.
Right.
I understand it, but I don't study it. I'm not an expert as such. And if someone asked me to write an article on wine, I won't do it. And whiskey is expensive, and people were going on the word of wine writers who basically were going up to Scotland on a freebie, on a jolly, having lashings of the stuff, and then saying, "Oh, how wonderful this was," because basically they hadn't been spitting it out.
Yeah, I hear you.
And so
I've been there myself.
So I thought, hang on, this is really unfair on the public, because they trust this person's reputation. They're not necessarily getting a knowledgeable insight into the whiskey itself. And I thought, I can do better than this. And that then made me start thinking, maybe I can start doing this full time. And my now ex-wife was not happy about it. But I do remember telling her in the mid-80s that one day I would almost certainly be a full-time whiskey writer. And that was in the mid-80s.
So what kind of evolution have you witnessed since those early days in your whiskey writing to where we are today?
Wow. It's like going back to the Stone Age. If you went back then, if you and I could grab a time machine and we went back, you would find very, very few distilleries which had visitor centres. In fact, even on Islay, you would actually make an appointment usually with the distillery manager, and he would take you around. There was so few tourists.
It wasn't really seen as a kind of tourist industry at that point.
No,
right?
I mean, Bamore on Islay had a. But there again, if you went to Islay, I used to go to Islay, and something like 95% of the people who went to Islay were higher than that, went there to do diving, deep sea diving, and other activities. You know, they did bird watching, they did deep sea diving. Whiskey only came into it from the point of view that was what they drank at night, and they would possibly go to the Bowmore distillery because it was peeing down with rain, you know, which it did a lot.
Right, okay, yeah.
And still does. And they would go there because they had been washed out, and they would go there. But there hadn't been that revolution. But to be honest with you, I don't know why, but instinct was telling me that revolution was around the corner. And if I could help point people in the direction of some amazing whiskies, I thought, well, I wonder if I can do something here. I know it sounds really strange, and when I did in 1992 give up working for a national newspaper, so I went from a really well-paid job to earning nothing, literally nothing, overnight. I had to make something happen, and so I wrote for, you know, everybody and anybody, because I wanted, because I needed to earn a living, and secondly, because I wanted people out there to actually learn about it. But the one thing I wouldn't do is I would not write anything I did not believe to be true. So I got a reputation very early on for criticising whiskies.
Yeah, you've always been known for being fiercely independent, that's for sure.
I think that probably goes back to my days of being a national newspaper journalist.
Yes, yeah.
Because I don't write for the industry. I actually write for the consumer. And if it helps the industry, then all well and good. But I'm never going to point people in the direction of a very, very bland or substandard whiskey.